You don't know Disney until you've seen these docs. Welcome to MsMojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 Disney documentaries to watch if you're a true fan.
This is artwork totally generated by hand. This is hipster Mickey, you know. Mickey Mouse has even got a smartphone.
For this list, we're taking a look at documentaries as well as docu-series about the history and impact of the Walt Disney Company, not to mention the countless artists who helped shape it into an everlasting beacon of magic. Just to clarify, we won't be including any biopics like Saving Mr. Banks.
And you can stay there until you learn the art of subtlety.
Number 10. The Boys, the Sherman Brothers story.
I'd never be the success that I am if he wasn't the success that he is, because we did it together.
We had no sibling rivalry when it came to writing.
Although they share blood and a passion for music, brothers Richard and Robert Sherman weren't without contrasting tastes, styles, and personalities. Even if they weren't peas in a pod, the two went together in perfect harmony during their time with Disney.
A spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down. And I couldn't wait to tell Dick the next morning. I said, spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down. He said, what? He said, you're nuts.
While The Boys explores their contributions to films like Snoopy Come Home and Charlotte's Web, it's mainly about how this songwriting duo gave a voice to Disney classics like Mary Poppins, not to mention various Disney park attractions like It's a Small World. Produced by their sons, the documentary also provides insight into their personal lives and the sibling rivalry that kept their families apart for years.
In life, not everything turns out like a Sherman Brothers musical. But somewhere in their songs, they do meet.
Number 9. Floyd Norman, An Animated Life. While not a household name, there isn't a person in the animation community who doesn't know who Floyd Norman is.
Every time there's a great moment in animation, look around, there's Floyd Norman. He's like the Forrest Gump of animation.
He's a living link to a really important period of Disney history.
Norman stands out as the first African-American animator to become a long-term Disney employee, but that's just one of the reasons why he's a legend. This documentary explores Norman's on and off career at Disney, which began with Sleeping Beauty and continued into the 21st century with films like Dinosaur. It also touches upon Norman's dynamic with Walt Disney and his time at other studios.
When he turned 65 of Disney, told him, "You're out of here." I've never seen him more devastated in his life.
With a laid-back tone, An Animated Life doesn't reveal any shocking secrets. However, it's a loving celebration of an artist who lives to create. No matter how old he gets or where he works, Norman's passion can't be contained.
I was rehired by Walt Disney Animation Studios, and now, lo and behold, I am a Disney employee once again. I'm back on staff at Disney.
Number 8. Walt, the man behind the myth. Despite being iconic, Walt Disney could be a very private person and even today remains something of an enigma. If you ever wanted to learn more about the man behind the myth, we'd suggest starting with this documentary narrated by Dick Van Dyke.
Laugh-O-Grams went out of business. In July of 1923, Walt sold his movie camera. He would go where all movie makers go. He would head for Hollywood.
The film chronicles Walt's career ranging from his early animation roots to his venture into feature animation to his development of Disneyland and other parks.
You could see the lump in his throat, and he had a tear in his eye.
To all who come to this happy place, welcome. Disneyland is your land.
In addition to his achievements, the film doesn't shy away from the darker elements of Walt's personal life, such as the Disney struggle to have children and his untimely demise in 1966.
And I said, for gosh sakes, Walt, why don't you give up smoking? And he says, well, a guy's got to have a few vices, don't he?
Like any human being, Walt had his flaws and inner demons, but this documentary reminds us why his legacy is one that will forever endure. Number 7. The Hand Behind the Mouse, the UB Iwerks story. We all know who Walt Disney is, but some people aren't even aware that Mickey Mouse had a co-creator, UB Iwerks. Directed by his granddaughter, Leslie Iwerks, this documentary delves into UB Iwerks' partnership with Disney.
And even Walt, I think, finally sort of started admitting that towards the end, that without UB, there wouldn't have been a Mickey.
Although he perfected the designs of Mickey and Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, iWorks never got as much credit as Disney, which was one of the reasons he eventually branched off.
As the public spotlight shone brighter on Walt, it seemed the shadow moved increasingly in Ub's direction.
Where Disney was equal parts storyteller and salesman, though, iWorks was a creative genius above all else, lacking the instincts of a businessman. iWorks would thus return to Disney years later, breaking new ground in the special effects department.
Working with the Xerox Corporation, Ub adapted their process to animation.
The hand behind the mouse shines the spotlight on an underappreciated hero of animation and innovation, giving iWorks his due. Number 6. The Sweatbox. Before it was a goofy comedy, The Emperor's New Groove was intended to be a Prince and the Pauper-like story entitled Kingdom of the Sun.
And there's Manco, the arrogant, self-centered prince.
I can't believe I've been here this long and no one's kissed my feet.
The original version would have featured other characters, a more serious tone, and additional songs by musician Sting. While working on the film, Sting's wife Trudy Styler shot a gold mine of behind-the-scenes footage. Styler, along with co-director John Paul Davidson, used the footage to make this documentary, which details the numerous story changes, the frustration of everyone involved in the project, and what might have been.
I've really stopped at nothing, murder, treachery, and lying. Whatever it takes to keep my looks, you really can't blame a gal for trying.
Considering its background and at times unflattering portrayal of the studio, it's not surprising that Disney never gave the Sweatbox a proper release. You'll definitely want to seek out this fascinating documentary online, however.
For me, so much of the movie isn't working. I just don't know who I'm supposed to care about, what I'm watching.
Number 5. The Imagineering Story. When The Imagineering Story was first announced in 2013, it was intended to be a 90-minute documentary directed by Leslie Iwerks. Fast forward 6 years later, the project finally saw the light of day, now as a 6-part documentary series released with the launch of Disney+.
Anytime you take people behind the scenes, you see the imperfections, the trial and error, the experimentation, things that went well from the beginning and things that didn't get great until the very end.
Given the vast history of Walt Disney Imagineering, a feature-length film simply couldn't do it justice, making this docuseries well worth the wait. To provide the most in-depth look possible, Iwerks spent 5 years traveling to Disney theme parks around the world.
They didn't have money to buy the plants they needed for the river ride. He would put ads in the newspapers down in Orange County and around that anybody who had a big tree that they didn't want in their yard anymore, they would gladly come and take it out.
The Imagineering Story pulls back the curtain, revealing where the magic happens and the people who made that magic a reality. For anyone who's intrigued by animatronics, amusement rides, and engineering in general, this is a must binge.
Keep it friendly, make it a real fun place to be. I think they're convinced, and I think that'll hang on after, as you say, after Disney.
Number 4. Frank and Ollie.
Hey, good morning. Oh, hi. Well, you sure got a lot of trash. Yeah, a lot of old manuscripts they didn't like.
Walt Disney worked with numerous animators, but there were 9 old men in particular that he considered his core crew. Among this team were Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnston, who are essentially like Chip and Dale. You can't have one without the other. As shown through this documentary, Thomas and Johnston were masters of character animation.
My son, I kept watching him when he was a kid, sucking his thumb and holding on to his ear while he did it, and I used that on Prince John.
Mother always did like Richard best.
The film examines their early days working on Snow White, the impact of the Jungle Book following Walt's passing, and the lessons they'd pass on to the next generation of animators in the book Disney Animation: The Illusion of Life.
We speak the same language, and for many years we spoke the same language as Walt. There's a truth and an honesty there that you don't always find even in fairly close friends.
Frank and Ollie was directed by Thomas's son, Theodore Thomas, who'd share a retrospective from the children of Disney animators in another documentary, Growing Up with 9 Old Men. Number 3. The Pixar Story.
I remember Ed came to me and he says, let's do a little animated film, something that says who we are.
Yet another Leslie Iwerks film. This Emmy-nominated documentary reveals how Pixar went from being a minor division of Lucasfilm to the pioneering powerhouse behind CG animation. Although Pixar produced hit after hit upon partnering with Disney, every project presented another obstacle. For example, Disney nearly pulled the plug on Toy Story after a disastrous story reel screening.
Hey, you want to be Mr. Mashed Potato Head? You button your lip. Nobody's getting replaced.
It resulted in the Woody character being one of the most repellent things you've ever seen on screen. I mean, you couldn't watch it.
That was nothing compared to the production of Toy Story 2, which had to be completely reworked 9 months before its release date. Through perseverance, innovation, and unbound creativity, however, Pixar became one of the greatest success stories in animation history. This gripping documentary goes to show that there's really no such thing as an overnight success, and new challenges will always be waiting around the corner.
I feel like I'm in Dumbo. I feel like I'm in Pinocchio. This is truly going to be timeless and forever, and will always land in the consciousness of yet another generation of moviegoers.
Number 2. Life Animated.
I memorized every Disney animated movie ever made. I memorized the credits, and that's how I taught myself to read.
Where most of these films are about Disney's creative process, this Oscar-nominated documentary is about how Disney can change and improve lives. Diagnosed with autism at age 3, Owen Suskind was unresponsive for years. By watching Disney and other animated movies, though, Owen learned how to communicate and connect with others.
I grab Owen and I say, "Just your voice." And he says, "Just your voice, just your voice, just." It's the first time he looks at me in a year.
Of course, there are some lessons Disney can't teach Owen, such as the birds and the bees. Nevertheless, Disney played a crucial role in helping Owen to function in everyday life.
I can't believe it! I just don't believe it! We're never gonna get a hold of that stupid plan!
Despite not being produced by Disney, the filmmakers were given permission to incorporate their properties, while Illumination's Mac Guff provided the animation. Life Animated proves that Disney is so much more than a company. It's practically like a member of all our families.
My childhood days were over. But doesn't matter.
If these documentaries have taught me anything, it's how many unsung heroes there are in the history of Disney. Here are some other films and series that you should check out before we get to what I believe to be required viewing if you're a Disney fan.
Now, the Disney cartoons, I think he recognized in the Silly Symphonies the potential for surrealism in animation. Walt Disney was someone that was really changing the whole field of animated cartoons.
3, 2.
It's amazing what you can do with a little imagination.
I said, "I'm not signing with you on your say-so." He said, "All right, I've warned you. I can make a dust bowl out of your place here, Disney's." So the next morning, before I could even turn it over to my labor people, the strike.
The decision was, should we have drinking fountains or restrooms? Because there literally wasn't enough time to get both done. And Walt said, well, you know, we've got to have restrooms, and people can drink Coke and Pepsi, but they can't pee in the street.
It was draining. You know, people talked about the overtime and how sick they got, you know, from all this drawing and tendinitis and losing friends and divorces were all happened because we had to work so hard.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Number 1. Waking Sleeping Beauty. Directed by Don Hahn, a longtime Disney producer, this thoroughly absorbing documentary begins during the studio's darkest hour.
I remember interior decorators tearing down walls that hadn't been touched since 1939. New Berber carpeting replaced decades-old linoleum, and I couldn't figure it out. What's wrong with linoleum? I mean, Walt Disney walked on that linoleum.
Not only did The Black Cauldron lose to the Care Bears movie on its opening weekend, but former Disney animator Don Bluth was beating the studio at its own game. The magic returned, however, with the dawn of the Disney Renaissance.
What would I give if I could live out of these waters? The intensity is better than what would I give is better than noise.
This period saw many triumphs, such as Beauty and the Beast getting a Best Picture Oscar nomination, and The Lion King breaking box office records. It wasn't without tragedy either, as exemplified through the losses of Howard Ashman and Frank Wells.
Before I left, I bent over and whispered, Beauty and the Beast was going to be a great success. Who'd have thought it, I said. And Howard lit up and whispered, I woulda.
At its core, though, Waking Sleeping Beauty is a comeback story, not only for Disney, but for the animation medium as we know it today.
I'm not sure I can ever tell you how much it means, and how much I love being part of your family, and how proud I am to have been a part of these movies with the best in the world.
Do you agree with our picks? Check out this other recent clip from MsMojo. And be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.